Greetings, chess friends. We're going to do both rounds 8 and 9 of the 2024 Menorca Open right here and now on this video. First one, round 8, playing a young lady from Ukraine. And this game already I had to face for the first time since maybe I was 800 rated, this move knight c3. I know these are topical games nowadays, bishop f4 and such, but I never really put much time into it, so I kind of slowed down right here and was just thinking, how is white to proceed? Played kind of the lazy c6, but of course it's natural move, always keeping an eye on moves like bishop takes b8. And then she played e3, okay, normal move, let's get the bishop out, and then f3. So I felt like I may have walked into something. Already thoughts of g4 or e4, h4, moves like this wasn't feeling great. She played these moves quickly. So I thought for a while and play queen b6. Could see myself getting into some real hot water here. But fortunately here, she thought for quite a while and played rook b1. That's usually an indication, not a move that's just losing or anything, but an indication that things have gone well, let's say. Queen d2, daring black to capture. And had we captured this rook b1, classic idea here, but this is unique because actually the queens go and white is just down a pawn with the more active pieces. Had this pawn been back on f2, like typical structure, there wouldn't be this wrinkle, let's say. Is this double pawn a real problem? No, not at all. Had the g7 pawn not been there, then it would look very ugly if the pawns were like this. But since we have the move queen d3, g6, the move I couldn't play fast enough, now the pawns look quite good. So quick lesson, double pawns are not always bad. These pawns are fine, they're connected, they're compact, they're guarded, and they're all controlling key light squares. So interesting dynamics with that trade. Bishop takes f5, and e takes f5. And black in this game is me. I was happy with this exchange. So for better or worse, let's see. Actually, this was probably the best game that I played. I felt very good about it, and then toward the end, really just tripped over my own 2 feet, so to speak. But here, an interesting moment, bishop d6, and she was obviously stopping me from castling, but because of the nature of the position, so closed, even this move, trading on f8, I didn't feel was any issue. So you can ask yourself, is black's king safe here? The answer is clearly yes. Castles and rook e8. I wanted to do this as quickly as possible to kind of establish the rook on the e-file. And next move is going to be king g7. Black has a very clear plan. Given enough moves, which she just gives me, black has king g7, rook e7, and rook h over to e8, doubling on this weak pawn. Again, if there was this pawn back on f2, this would not be the case or necessarily the best plan. So combine that with this pin, which has to do with that pawn exactly. Combine that with this pawn. So if you want to, let's say, guard with the rook, it's a little less comfortable. Everything really looking good. Safe king, a plan. I felt pretty good here. Black. Okay, b4. And I didn't really think this was too shocking. This move I saw coming. What else to do because of the b pawn sitting there? But there's really no threat there. It feels tempting. She plays rook f e1. It feels tempting. Like even b5 right now, we can probably just here play, yeah, as in the game, queen c7. Just ignore. c5 may be a little too risky, but just completely ignore. Even if they get to take and queen had to take, it's not bad for black at all. Bottom line, no danger there. Rook e7, knight f4, and rook h8. Kind of step 1 of this plan complete. We've lined everything up with this pawn, and actually kind of a funny turn of events that this becomes an incredible battlefield for the square e4. So every piece that can be mustered will be guarding e4, and finally that break comes. Really nice concept here. Check this out. She also doubles, and this allowed knight b6, which I really liked where this was headed, knight c4. That's kind of a natural outpost once the b pawn has moved. And after getting the knight there, everything felt great. Knight h3. Actually, this position is pretty tough for white. I felt like this was really a strategic achievement really a nice achievement here for black. Every piece for black is really working in the same way, guarding e4 or pressuring this weak pawn. So everything was great. I thought I had really played a nice positional and strategic game. Knight d6 gets the missed win. Knight b2, knight c4. Just, you could repeat there even. What's the best move here? C takes b5, knight takes, queen a5. Okay, yeah, I think the engine wants basically black to use the c file. Rook c7 here and this idea. But as far as the natural order of the game, not changing things so much like that, we're feeling good here. Knight d6, again, aimed at just keeping an eye on e4. Let's count the pieces here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces, all guarding e4. Now, that's pretty impressive, but white has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 once they push. And guess where this knight is headed? Back to e4 to support this even more. So an all-out war starting on the square e4, central square. Everyone's loading up. Really interesting. Queen a5. And I spotted something. This is a really crafty move. I spotted that after this, a great calculation example here. After this, when a knight eventually will take there, the queen at the end of that will have an eye on this rook. Watch this. Capture. And by the way, I thought here about rook c7. I really gave this a few moments thought. Engine loves it. Best move, actually, rook c7. I gave this some thought and did not play it. I just said, okay, status quo. I know what's happening here. She's definitely playing e4. And lo and behold, a few moments later, e4 does come. Okay, we've been drawing up the battle plans. Finally, someone steps out, fires the first shot. Look at this, e4. A good calculation exercise right here. Try to calculate. Black's going to take first. Black takes. How is it going to finish? Really nice. And if you really are picturing things accurately, you will notice at the end, it will be just the rooks. And actually, queen will be able to take this. Check this out. Capture. D takes. Knight f takes. Knight d takes. I did give some real thought here to keeping the knights on the board. Knight d5, which was threatening knight f4. Also, just kind of a crafty move, maybe f5. But I thought, actually, with the queen, if we're going to even get into this 2 rooks for a queen, you'll see that's what happens. I would rather no knights be on the board. Queen and knight for white would be very dangerous. 2 rooks and knight, maybe all circumstantial, but I thought better just to trade. And something I knew was winning. This is what I pictured, all of those captures. And when finally the rook takes, you can't take with the queen, or rook takes, things just don't add up. So after rook takes, I saw all of this. Queen takes, e1, rook takes, and this should be a technically winning game. I drew. So this was the sad part. I felt like this was a strategic masterpiece. Let's see here. The engine also liking rook takes e4, rook takes e4, rook b8. Ah, okay. I didn't think of that. Maybe white's king is a bit more in danger. Ah, okay. So this would have been interesting. I really didn't even give that any thought until just this moment. Cool. I was had my heart set on this endgame, which again, I knew was winning. I've seen many games with the 2 rooks slowly grabbing the extra pawns together and the queen is defenseless. Winning advantage. Okay, let's take it slow. Rook 1 to e6. Threatening, again, not a major threat, but at any moment we can slowly push the king to one side. The king can always fall into some danger in these games, as you'll see. This pawn is kind of a target, but really both of them. So rook e6 helps with that. Here we go, c4 and rook f6. Check. h5 and h4. I'm already starting to think, okay, these are targets. Now the g4 square. I just need to slowly do this. I was low on time as usual. I hear a not so insignificant threat. King f3, and we do not want to go into the king and pawn endgame. I won't get into the details, but the 2 rooks should be superior to the queen here. Just need to be careful. Engine confirms. Black is slightly better. Pushing her king back to the g file. And finally, we line up on these pawns. Okay, obviously we need to start reducing the material. The dream situation would be to get all these pawns off the board and leave it 3 versus 2. Very manageable in a small area, the king side only, and the rooks can team up against both of white's pawns. That would be the dream situation. C5. Okay, here, rook f5. I thought this was a good start. Threatening. Here, rook takes c5. Easy to see that. But also here, also keeping kind of the f pawn in danger. This is kind of typically a good square for a rook. It's guarded, and everything feels good there. Queen e4. Okay, she's threatening. But here, a subtle mistake. I played rook f to d5. The engine gives kind of the, looks a bit innocuous, a5, allowing queen c6. Let's go down this line, which did not happen. I was very nervous to separate the rooks. This rook kind of floating around unguarded. So no checks really hurt me yet, but just alert for that. Separating the rooks will allow forks, essentially. So if they're connected, you're always safe. Really nice moment here. King h7 and a sort of zugzwang. White is essentially in zugzwang. Not really, but very, very few moves here. You are pinned here. If you just take the pawn, that allows the rook to play to c4. And this pawn is now surrounded. And like we said before, the two rooks, when they team up, they can attack twice, obviously, and the queen can only attack once. So really, this would have been a good try and essentially winning for black. Still a conversion necessary. But we played in the game there, rook d5, a5, and a6. I just really didn't handle myself well. The game already going to drawn territory. All we need to do is get rid of these pawns. You can take one right now, but we have to time everything right. The white king is open, dream situation here. King f8. That was essentially stopping the king from crossing over the e-file due to rook e8. Again, a very artificial move. Engine gives the missed win. I don't see it. It's king g7. Again, sort of getting to that zugzwang, but we have to time this capture correctly. King f8, queen d3, a really good move. Not entirely difficult to see if you're looking for what to attack, but actually the only move that keeps the advantage. And it walks right into all these captures. I do want to point out here that rook takes c5 is a horrible mistake due to queen a3. Despite the pin, all of a sudden white turns the tables. So, but rook could just have taken on d4. This is what happened in the game. Queen a6. Again, easier to play, but the engine for black, but the engine's still giving zeros here. Capture, capture. I felt good. Here we go. The pawns are gone. All we need to do is kind of safely get behind this pawn and round it up, and we would have the ideal situation, 3 versus 2, all on the king side. Queen f6 gets a question mark, but a really frustrating move. Obviously, the rook is hanging. Obviously, this check is looming. This pawn now, just don't let it get away. And it covers the c3 square, so we don't have check and rook c3. But actually here, found the best move with under a minute here. Really just playing on the increment, as I was many games. So terrible time management was just too much to overcome. But I found the move, rook d5, which guards e5. So you can check me in the corner, which she did, but you don't get to come back. The rooks are separated. I was so nervous about this walking into some fork. That's the way you can just lose in an instant. But queen h8 and c6. She just keeps playing good moves. Can we round this pawn up? Rook d c5. Still giving slight edge to black, the engine is. But maybe, perhaps rook a? Such a slight difference. I'm not sure why, but I played rook d. Here she played queen c8, exclamation point. She gets a ton of exclamation points here coming up for some pretty natural moves. I guess it gives a hint to what the computer thinks is a good move. Rook a3 check and rook c3, rook a c3. We've done it. Finally, we've done it. We've lined up the rooks to capture this pawn. You can't guard it anymore. It will never make a queen, and she plays check. Okay, all we need to do is get out of check. King f8, check. No big deal. Only one move. King g7, check. Okay, check. Okay, and then queen d7. She gets all these exclamation points, which was funny, but this one really could be deserving. Is deserving because now I have to guard this again with my king. And again, that means that the checks begin. So between the checks, a perpetual with checks, and the threat of this f pawn, I really couldn't even escape it with like king h8. Notice you cannot take it due to rook f5, but again, just queen d8. And she keeps checking me on the d8, threatening the pawn on d7, and then checking again on d4. These are the ways, the geometry that is used to really draw a perpetual check. So tough finish here. I thought I had finally achieved it. Again, just playing on the increment, but black's moves, although we have to be careful, it's not a super tricky position. We could make a lot of moves, check, 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 and gain a little time. So here, when she threatened the pawn, I think, yes, I did play here an extra check, and just to change things a little, because I didn't want to make a repetition as I'm trying to work out, can I possibly get out of this? But the engine confirms this is just a perpetual check. Really, not the finish I wanted, but I thought this was an excellent positional game. When we got to the moment where I felt like this was strategically winning. The two rooks versus the queen. Traditionally, this is a winning edge. Just my technique is not so good. So, all right, let's move to the next game here. And oh, I wanted to mention one other thing. In looking at a bit of the social media posts for this tournament, I saw there was a camp with all the top juniors. And that camp was hosted by Artur Yusupov, a famous author and coach, and Judith Polgar. And I looked at the photo, all the kids I had seen all the week of the tournament, and this young lady, Sophia, was in that photo training with Judith Polgar and Artur Yusupov, two outstanding grandmasters. So impressive stuff. Watch out for her in the future. Last round. No more playing up. This is it, round 9. And we are at, let me think, 3.5 out of 8. 3.5 out of 8. Not the score I wanted. I had to play this gentleman from Portugal. A little bit older than myself, but 2000. Again, trying to convert that to US chess roughly. I just thought everyone's 2200. So here we go. A lot of theory in this game, all the way here in this F3 Grunfeld. And I knew a bit about it, but I don't recall ever playing a tournament game over the board in this. But here we go. First one. And castles, queen d2. This is all kind of the moves where the theory begins. And I was certainly not up to the task. A few different lines here. Black can play e5, black can play f5, or queen d6, I believe, is the main move. King b1. I always like these type of moves when your c-pawn is missing. Okay, this is the type of opening I feel like players, even strong players, over 2000 and such, will play these moves, but not truly understand them. I mean, of course, we have a nice center, but white needs to be careful as the development is lacking. Black needs to be careful, kind of the little bit strange coordination. Essentially, this is an opposite side castles game, and therefore, really white attacks on the king side as fast as you can, and black usually on the queen side. So there's a lot of interesting games, high-level games here. Knight b5, I knew this move. d5, again, I was just going by memory, not making these moves up myself. a6, and here is where I started to think my first mistake. Was thinking, no. Knight c3 is what I played in the game. I wasn't sure. I was kind of dreaming of something else, like knight a3. Engine doesn't hate it. Still, yeah, queen e8, which is what he played anyway, so he probably would have played that. But interesting. Miss. Well, certainly there's no winning move here, but knight c3 is what I played. Queen e8 quickly played. And I knew of this idea, queen c1. In fact, I feel like I've played this before in some training type games or blitz games online. But I was remembering some game and just really didn't remember what I had seen. If it was immediately h4. But I ended up playing bishop h6. So again, too hasty. Same thing I kind of did in round 7. Essentially the same move, bishop h6. But really h4, I believe queen c1 is the move. But there are some other tries which, again, the engine proposes and people like to unbalance the game. So anyway, this was not the best move, but let's see how it went. My opponent played very well this game. And then a funny situation occurs at the end, so stay tuned. Here we go. h4, mistake, but I was really just going for it. Last round, really just want to end with a win. Again, the queen e5, the best move, very centralizing. knight e2, knight takes knight. Again, wasn't totally upset if I ended up down a pawn. If we, again, similar to round 7, get this attack with the h-file open. For example, here, I really was trying to make h5 work, but it just felt too good to defend the pawn. This bishop needs to wake up. Our last piece developed. Knight takes d5. Brilliancy. Unbelievable. Brilliancy. Knight takes knight. And c6. Very well played, although the story is not over here. I played bishop c4, exclamation point, felt like the most natural move. And bishop b3. If a strong player, this was not on purpose, I lost the pawn, but if a strong player, a GM, had played this and just banged down bishop b3, I would be terrified that white was winning. I realized by accident, stumbling into this, that white is actually not so bad here. My opponent proceeds to play very, very well. And then, as promised, a kind of peculiar situation we see at the end. Here's really the start of my going wrong. G4 needed to be played here. And I really want to kind of focus on this position and the subsequent positions where G4 was available. And this move, of course, crossed my mind. Natural attacking move. But I didn't give it enough real attention. And this was the only way for white to go forward. So shame on me. A good learning moment here, G4. Let's dive in. H takes G4. What else? Here, we don't have to take. That's really the key. It's not a terrible move, but here, rook D, E1. Threatening the queen, activating more pieces, and all of white's attention should be on the king. All of white's attention should be on the king. Don't worry about recapturing the pawn and getting to equality. Get to the king. If you play a move like queen c7, very natural, white is winning after queen d4 or f takes. White is winning. Okay, so this was a big mistake by me, and I just didn't grasp it. Now, rook d, e1 is not an easy move to spot, but queen h5 is best here. And again, queen d4, f takes g4, very scary here for black. The dark squares, again, only king g8 keeps the edge. The game goes on. So that was the best chance here. Let's see. I missed it again. I thought this was a good move, though. Pinning the pawn, threatening the rook immediately. Queen is threatening the rook. And again, some kind of nice geometry. Not a bad move. Bishop e6, a natural reaction. And I started with king a1. Probably, again, could have done the same. But here is really the last chance. I need to play g4. I just played the natural and lazy. Rook he1. G4. All of this is made possible because the black king is on G7. If it were on G8, much safer and not susceptible to checks. On D4, where we saw a few checks already, Queen C3. So this move really just starts chipping away and just saying, we're all in. We have to attack. Again, capture. Rook D-E1. That is really the key move. And even if I had just thrown caution to the wind, played G4, I really don't know if I would have played this one or realized that move was available. Queen F6, let's see, it gets a miss, but okay, here Queen D4. Very unnatural move, getting in the way of the pawn, but it looks like you need to keep that diagonal. Again, F takes G4, engine giving equal, bishop takes, and rook HF1. Not a hard move to see. White is really active here. And again, Queen D4 is recommended, not a human move. If you play a human move, you are losing. Queen C3, and white is winning. So let's get back to the game. Rook HE1, Queen F6, Queen C7. The final mistake. Really could have even played G4 here and had a real chance, but Queen C7, again, lazy, hoping for tricks. There's some potential here. My opponent just played another excellent move, one after the other. A5, A3, A4, just pushing me back. At any moment, this move, B4, A3 type moves will come. This is a really miserable position, but a miracle occurred at this moment. A humorous miracle. This gentleman's wife, I presumed, came over and said something to him in Portuguese. He was representing Portugal, I assume Portuguese or Spanish, says something to him, da, 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 and he shoos her away like, blah, blah. And I realized this is the last round. This game's been going for a while. For your wife to come in here, they need to leave. They have to go. It's the last day, and they have to fly back. And my opponent, who is clearly winning, black, has played outstanding this entire game, plays rook ac8 and offers a draw. And I'm sitting there, only a few minutes left, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and I'm thinking, okay, this lady comes over, says something which I didn't understand, but I deduced the situation. Okay, probably he needs to go. I know that I'm worse. If this had been 5 moves earlier, I probably should just keep playing. But here I am clearly worse. And I thought for a while, what would you do? And I took the draw. Accepted the draw. Half, I don't know. I felt like it was a good move, actually, with the chess position, but he might have just resigned if I played like queen a5. So very, very funny. But my opponent just played an outstanding game. Unbelievable. Maybe this is an opening he really knew backwards and forwards. But I really, after getting into this game a little more, I was really disappointed in myself not giving the ideas of g4. After h5, somewhere in here, just playing g4. Even if a few inaccurate moves, king a1, but just somewhere here, just play g4 and let it ride. Because then we surely would have won. He would have had to play quickly or maybe even resigned. So that was a funny moment, but I did accept the draw. Maybe a little bit not as fighting as I used to be. So I thought it was polite and a good result for me chess-wise. So anyway, a great tournament. I really must say my results personally, just too many missed opportunities. Really too much time pressure, and I put myself in bad situations. So something I really need to pay really more attention to and work on if I want to improve. But also just want to mention the venue there in Menorca was amazing. Really something special they have going on there. So many strong players.